Welcome to Biden Brief. Trump ex-aide claims he wrote to-do lists on classified documents. The Independent. Former President Donald Trump allegedly tried to silence a former aide who knew about boxes of classified documents he kept at Mar-a-Lago after leaving the White House, according to a report by ABC News. Molly Michael, who worked as an assistant to Trump at the White House and after he left office, reportedly told federal investigators that he told her to stay quiet when he learned they wanted to speak to her. Trump denied the claims, with a spokesperson stating that he did nothing wrong. It is also reported that Trump responded to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's challenge during his speech at the UN General Assembly to reveal his plans to end Russia's war with Ukraine in a single day by joining in the far-right outrage over the US's spending on Ukraine. Putin weaponizing food as troops target cargo ship in Black Sea. The Independent. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Russian society has raised a second Hitler in a powerful speech delivered at the UN General Assembly. Zelensky urged the world to unite against Russian aggression and claimed that Russia was using tactics more catastrophic than nuclear destruction. He argued that while nuclear weapons remain in place, the mass destruction is gaining its momentum through the weaponization of food, energy, and children. Zelensky's speech comes ahead of a face-to-face meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the UN Security Council, where Zelensky is due to speak about Ukraine. Zelensky's speech at the UN General Assembly emphasized the need for collaboration and peace in the face of Russian aggression. He accused Russia of using tactics that are more destructive than nuclear weapons, claiming that food, energy, and children are being weaponized. Zelensky's warning about the dangers of Russian aggression comes ahead of a meeting with Lavrov, where tensions are expected to be high. In their last encounter at the UN Security Council, Lavrov called Zelensky a derogatory name and stormed out of the room. Zelensky's speech and upcoming meeting with Lavrov highlight the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia. The Ukrainian president is calling for international unity against Russia and warning of the catastrophic consequences of Russian aggression. As tensions continue to escalate, it remains to be seen how the international community will respond and what actions will be taken to address the situation. Israeli-Palestinian violence surges ahead of Netanyahu-Biden meeting. Reuters. Israeli troops killed a 19-year-old Palestinian during a raid in the occupied West Bank on Wednesday. Violence has surged ahead of a first meeting between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Joe Biden. The Palestinian was shot as troops faced off with stone throwers, according to residents, though his family said he had not taken part. This incident marks the sixth Palestinian killed in confrontations with Israel since Tuesday. Security in the West Bank has deteriorated amid an almost decade-old impasse in U.S.-sponsored peacemaking, the rise of Netanyahu's hard-right government, and an entrenchment of Islamist militants. Biden is troubled by Netanyahu's judicial overhaul plans and Jewish settlement of the West Bank. In Thailand's new prime minister, the U.S. glimpses a rare chance to reset ties. South China Morning Post. The U.S. sees an opportunity to strengthen its alliance with Thailand as the country's new prime minister seeks closer ties with the West, particularly in the areas of investment, trade, education, and energy, according to a U.S. official. The U.S. is keen to restore its relationship with Thailand, one of its oldest partners in Asia, after it was strained under the previous military-backed regime. However, the U.S. is cautious about engaging with a government propped up by the pro-military establishment and will also need to consider how long the Thai ruling coalition can last. Saudi-Russian oil cuts are dragging Britain towards a new energy crisis. Telegraph. The UK could face an energy crisis as a result of a Saudi-Russian alliance that is manipulating the global oil market, leading to potentially devastating consequences for British living standards. The alliance between Saudi Arabia and Russia has caused a surge in oil prices, with crude now trading at its highest level since November 2022. The cost of oil is expected to continue to rise, potentially reaching $100 a barrel for the first time in nearly a year. This could have a knock-on effect on petrol prices, food costs, and other goods and services, exacerbating the cost of living crisis. It may also force the Bank of England to extend its rate hike cycle, leading to further mortgage troubles for many households. How Hunter Biden's laptop plugs into Joe Biden impeachment talk. The Sydney Morning Herald. Hunter Biden, the son of U.S. President Joe Biden, is facing federal firearms charges for allegedly lying about his drug use when purchasing a handgun in 2018. Hunter Biden is a lawyer, businessman, and investor who has faced scrutiny due to his past struggles with drug and alcohol abuse. The controversy surrounding him has been amplified by the discovery of his abandoned laptop, which contained thousands of emails and explicit pictures. The laptop became a focus of the 2020 election after social media platforms blocked a story by the New York Post that was based on an email found on the laptop, alleging corruption involving Joe Biden and a Ukrainian figure. The laptop story has been tenuously linked to the impeachment probe against Joe Biden, as Republicans question whether Hunter Biden traded on his father's name in his dealings with foreign figures. Despite the weak case for corruption charges, Republicans are using the allegations to shape a narrative of doubt and push for an impeachment probe. However, the Republican Party itself is fractured, and it remains to be seen how this manufactured scandal will impact the upcoming presidential campaign. Trudeau's murder claim risks a pending U.S. courtship of India. Japan Times. U.S. President Joe Biden is facing a diplomatic challenge as he is caught between two important partners, one being a close ally and the other being a key partner in countering China. The challenge arises from allegations made by Saudi Arabia that an Iranian-backed group was responsible for the recent attack on an oil facility. The U.S. has traditionally sided with Saudi Arabia, but it is also seeking to improve relations with Iran in order to counter China's influence in the region. Biden will need to carefully navigate this situation in order to maintain relationships with both countries. State governors from Arizona, New Mexico seek stronger economic ties with Taiwan. Associated Press. Governors from the southwestern United States are pursuing stronger business ties with Taiwan in hopes of attracting new foreign investments and jobs to their landlocked states. The governors of New Mexico and Arizona visited Taiwan on trade missions, aiming to encourage ongoing investments and make their states hubs for semiconductor manufacturing. While Arizona has secured a Taiwanese microchip manufacturer's first U.S. plant, New Mexico plans to expand the presence of Taiwanese companies already in the state. Other U.S. governors have also recently traveled to Taiwan on trade missions. Media mogul often wishes Donald Trump dead, Michael Wolff book says. The Guardian. Rupert Murdoch is so against Donald Trump that he often wishes for his death, according to author Michael Wolff in his new book, The Fall, The End of Fox News and the Murdoch Dynasty. Wolff claims that Murdoch, 92, has become an enemy of the former U.S. president, frequently expressing thoughts like how could he still be alive, how could he? Murdoch is reported to have soured on Trump and even personally endorsed the Fox News call of Arizona for Joe Biden on election night in 2020, fueling Trump's campaign of lies about voter fraud. U.S. and G7 allies now expect Ukraine-Russia war to grind on for years. South China Morning Post. U.S. President Joe Biden has called on world leaders to support Ukraine in its fight against Russia, as the conflict is expected to last for years to come. Biden's appeal comes as questions are raised in the U.S. about the cost of supporting Ukraine's fight and pressure grows from developing countries for a quick end to the conflict. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made his case for the war effort at the United Nations General Assembly, accusing Russia of turning resources into weapons. However, opposition is growing in the U.S. Congress to continued funding for support to Ukraine, with several Republican candidates in next year's presidential elections calling for a reduction in commitments. Ukrainian allies in the Global South have also made little progress in winning support for peace talks. A senior official from one European G7 country has said the war could last another 6 or 7 years, longer than previously expected. Ukraine and its allies oppose negotiations at present, insisting on a full withdrawal of Russian troops. The Republican Party infighting is driving America toward a government shutdown. CNN. The Republican Party's war on itself has turned its inoperative House majority into a clown show and a dysfunction caucus and is handing wins to the Chinese Communist Party, and that's just what some of its own members say about it. Days of recriminations between far-right hardliners, moderates, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and his nihilistic tormentors reached a new peak on Tuesday in extraordinary scenes of inter-party infighting on the south side of the U.S. Capitol. The Republican majority's farcical self-harm now increasingly appears to be putting America on a path hurtling toward a government shutdown ahead of a deadline for new federal funding at the end of next week. Another failure Tuesday to pass a defense bill raised the possibility that political discord now and in the future could hamper U.S. readiness amid a challenge from a rising Chinese superpower. And Ukraine's fight for survival looks increasingly hostage to the House's unwillingness or inability to finance a new lifeline of arms and ammunition. Israel's Netanyahu to meet with Biden in New York. The location is seen as a sign of U.S. displeasure. Associated Press. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to meet with U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday in New York, marking the first time the two leaders have met since Netanyahu took office as head of a right-wing government. The meeting, which will take place on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, has been interpreted in Israel as a sign of U.S. displeasure with Netanyahu's new administration. Although no details have been released about the meeting's agenda, it is expected that Biden will raise concerns about Netanyahu's proposed plan to overhaul Israel's judicial system. The Prime Minister's plan has caused significant controversy in Israel, with critics arguing that it weakens the country's independent judiciary and pushes it towards authoritarian rule. In addition, the Biden administration has also expressed discontent at Netanyahu's government's treatment of the Palestinians. The Israeli coalition is dominated by far-right ultranationalists, who have overseen a significant expansion of Israeli settlement construction on occupied Palestinian land. Israel's government also opposes a two-state solution, which is backed by the White House. Israel's Netanyahu to meet with Biden in New York. The location is seen as a sign of U.S. displeasure. The Independent. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to meet U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday for the first time since taking office. The meeting, which will take place in New York rather than Washington, is seen by some as a sign of U.S. displeasure with Netanyahu's far-right government and its plans to overhaul Israel's judicial system. The two leaders are expected to discuss shared democratic values and a vision for a more integrated region, but differences over settlements and Palestinian statehood are likely to be raised. Biden's Democratic allies intensify pressure for asylum seekers to get work permits. The Independent. New York City Mayor Eric Adams and New York Governor Kathy Hochul have implored President Joe Biden to ease the migrant crisis by allowing migrants to work. However, experts have said that expediting work permits would be difficult both legally and bureaucratically. The Biden administration has said that it would take an act of Congress to shorten the current 6-month waiting period for asylum seekers to apply for work permits. The Homeland Security Department has sent over 1 million text messages reminding those eligible to apply for work permits, but it has shown no signs of speeding up the process as there is already a backlog of applications. The White House has also dismissed suggestions that New York State could offer work permits. As a result, migrants are unable to work and have instead filled homeless shelters in several cities. In New York, the city has rented hotel space and erected tent shelters to cope with the influx of migrants, which the Adams administration estimates could cost the city $12 billion over 3 years. Biden's Democratic allies intensify pressure for asylum seekers to get work permits. Associated Press. New York City Mayor Eric Adams and Governor Kathy Hochul have pushed President Joe Biden to ease the migrant crisis by granting migrants work permits. However, experts have stated that granting work permits is not easy, either legally or bureaucratically. It would require an act of Congress to shorten the mandatory 6-month waiting period before asylum seekers can apply for work permits. Some leaders believe that the Biden administration could take steps that do not require congressional approval, but this seems unlikely. The Department of Homeland Security has sent over 1 million text messages urging eligible migrants to apply for work permits but has not shown any inclination to speed up the process. Hochul has said that her office is considering whether the state could offer work permits, but this would likely face legal challenges. Many migrants have filled up homeless shelters in several cities while they wait for work permits. New York City has rented space in hotels, put cots in recreational centers, and erected tent shelters for migrants, all at government expense. Advocates for migrants believe that the impact on the city has been exaggerated. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.